In the 1960s, Ohio Governor Jim Rhodes pushed forward the idea of a vocational education system for Ohio school students.
Many at that time considered the new concept of vocational education combined with career choice to be revolutionary. Ohio's fiercely independent local school districts were being asked to join together in a totally untested vocational system.
And to get a statewide movement of this magnitude, involving this many school districts and literally thousands of people, both citizens and business and industry, corporate officials, was a massive undertaking.
But Gene Kavanaugh, first superintendent of Great Oaks, put vocational education for the kids ahead of everything.
There was nothing for those kids that were falling through the cracks to do.
On a second try, the district passed its first levy. Land for 2 campuses was being acquired. Kavanaugh now tackled acquiring the Sharonville site, Scarlet Oaks. Others were after it too.
I was the mayor of Sharonville, and we looked at the old GSA site, or the Army Depot site, and we used our influence with the federal government to surplus about 200 acres.
Business and industry did not see us as that high on the totem pole.
Well, next thing you know, Great Oaks came along and said, well, we want the rest of it. We want another 65 acres. We were less happy with that because we thought we were missing an opportunity with much more taxes for the city.
If vocational education isn't any more important than that we have to take the back end of the ordnance depot for a site, I don't settle for that.
With success in Sharonville, Kavanaugh and the board turned their attention to Wilmington. Great Oaks was vying to take over the old Clinton County Air Force Base. Business resistance was stiff.
It just made sense that this be converted somehow to, in my mind, an industrial park, and as a component we'd have this whatever it is, vocational school.
Negotiations led to Great Oaks receiving a large portion of the base. Secretary of Defense Mel Laird, a former high school principal, gave his personal approval. Now, Kavanaugh and his small staff had the challenge of building 3 campuses from the ground up and rehabbing buildings on the old air base for a 4th, all at once.
He was told, you can't possibly, by the state superintendent, you can't possibly build 4 schools at the same time.
I remember Martin Essex telling me, he said, Gene, you're down to 2 because you got 3 campuses. There's no way you're going to try to build those 3 campuses. Well, but Gene wasn't doing it all.
It was already June 1972 when Great Oaks received title to the airbase, with the requirement that it open the school in September.
To get title to it, and 90 days later we're supposed to be open. You know, that's quite a challenge, all right.
Well, I don't know how you'd describe chaos, but I'll try it, because that's where we were.
The Air Force had literally turned off everything in the kitchen and walked out.
We tore down buildings, we renovated buildings.
And we also had to spend time recruiting students.
Well, you know, to get a kid to move from his district to some place he never heard of, to do something he didn't know existed, well, how you gonna do that, you know?
And with that, Great Oaks became an educational force in southwestern Ohio.
In one remarkable summer, the airbase was transformed into Laurel Oaks. In just one more year, the other 3 campuses were built, staffed, equipped, and opened.
It was just amazing. I had no idea when they started that they would expand out to become the biggest, maybe the biggest area vocational center in the country, with 4 major centers.
Before long, Great Oaks began offering classes and training for adults.
Great Oaks vocational schools aren't just for high school students. Adult education classes are offered in the agricultural, automotive, construction, communication, and business fields. Whether you want to learn a new skill for a better job, learn how to do your own repair work at home, or just enrich your own life, you owe it to yourself to visit one of our schools or call the Great Oaks Vocational School District at 771-8840 for a list of available courses at the school nearest you.
This unique educational system and Great Oaks began getting attention.
Over and over, we tell our children to get a good job, get a good education. But what kind of job? What kind of education? Correspondent Eric Ingberg reports tonight on one approach to meshing classroom training and job training. Schools to help students who might otherwise drop out, and U.S. businesses that need a new generation of qualified workers.
It's hardly a traditional classroom, but it is a high school class in training racehorses. The idea that high school is a good place to learn a marketable skill, especially for the 40% who don't go to college, is catching on with educators and business leaders increasingly worried about the declining quality of the American workforce.
We can't afford to lose anybody. If we lose a person, we're going to have to import someone to take that job or export that work out of the United States.
Courses on everything from air conditioning repair to floral design to wildlife management are being tried as innovative schools react to a changing economy.
Where vocational education once had a reputation as something of a dumping ground, today it's being looked at as the classroom of the future.
Satellite classes were added to serve students in our partner schools.
Shop class has long been a part of the high school experience. Maybe a little drafting, even electronics gets mixed in. But although we might remember things like metal shop or even working with wood, the vocational classroom of today, it sure is changing.
They're real excited. I mean, it's a big transformation from the traditional wood shop to this type of program.
Wyoming High School partnered with Great Oaks Career Center to start this hands-on class. 16 stations, each teaching a different skill.
And they work with partners. It's a collaborative learning process. They'll sit down at a module with a partner, and they'll go through a student activity guide, and it will explain step by step for 10 days worth of activity.
And now, 50 years after local residents first approved funding for Great Oaks, about 40,000 high school students and adults have earned professional credentials and have been working to improve their own lives and their communities.
3 local schools showed off their scientific stuff at an international robot competition in Illinois. Teams from Walnut Hills High School, Northwest High, and the Great Oaks Institute of Technology and Development competed with robots built by students from across the U.S. and from Canada. The robots had to be able to perform certain tasks like moving around objects. The annual competition is sponsored by Motorola.
A lot has changed during that time. What hasn't changed is Great Oaks' commitment to quality and to success for all.
Now I can look back on it and say, well, this really helped me, you know. This really prepared me for my future. This really prepared me for my career that I'm in now.
So as you can see, do yourself a favor. Check your options at the Great Oaks Joint Vocational Schools. Go for it. Go Great Oaks. This is Chris Collinsworth asking you to look into the Great Oaks Joint Vocational Schools program now.